What's up, guys? It's Jordan from Laundromat Resource and laundromatresource.com. And today is a special day. And let me tell you why. It's because today we're going to talk about 3 things that you must do before you buy a laundromat. If you're thinking about buying a laundromat, maybe you're considering it, maybe the idea intrigues you because you like the idea of cash flow that's time independent, or maybe you have laundromats already and you're looking to buy some more. There's still these 3 things that you need to do before you buy a laundromat. So let's get into that. But before we do, I want to ask you guys a question. I'm curious if you could just leave a comment down below with this response. What is your biggest question about laundromat ownership? I'm curious as to what your questions are. I would love to answer them here on YouTube and on our blog, laundromatresource.com/blog. I would love to answer those questions and to hear what you guys are thinking and what questions you guys have, what barriers are keeping you from getting into the laundromat industry. So leave a comment down below. And while you're at it, just hit that subscribe button because that would really help us out. And it's really going to help you out because if you're looking to be financially free, financially independent through laundromat ownership, this is a place where you're going to learn what you need to know to get you there. So leave that comment down below, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell if you want to know when new videos are coming out. And let's jump into this. What are the 3 things that you absolutely must do before you buy a laundromat? The first thing is this: you have got to determine if laundromat ownership is for you, because it's not for everybody. And you need to know whether or not it's going to fit your lifestyle, whether or not it's going to fit your desires, your wants, your needs. And in order to do that, there are a few things that you have got to consider. Here's number 1. Do you have the time to allocate to owning a laundromat? And most likely, unless you're employing a laundromat management company, which you can do to really scale that time back. It'll cost a little extra, but you can really scale your time back. If you use a laundromat management company and you have one near you, there's not a lot of them out there. Some brokers will do it for you. We do that in Southern California for owners. So if you're curious about that, hit us up and we can talk more about that. But unless you're doing that, it is going to require some time every single week for you to run your laundromat. And the question I get up most often is, how much time do I need to plan on spending on my laundromat? And the great answer is it depends, like everything else. But generally speaking, I spend 1 to 2 hours a week on each of my laundromats. I'm in LA and I live in Orange County, and I spend probably at least as much, if not more, time on the road getting to the laundromats and home than I do at my laundromats most weeks. So generally speaking, you can plan on 1 to 2 hours per laundromat per week if you're running it hands off. If maybe you have a job that you want to stay at, or you're just looking for some relatively, I'll call it time independent or passive income. So you can do it that way. And that would include going and collecting coins, making sure all the equipment is running in good shape. If you're going to be fixing equipment yourself, you can do that. A lot of times the distributors will have service schools and they'll teach you actually how to fix the equipment, at least for some of the common issues that come up with them. You can plan on a little bit more, and the older the equipment is, the more that often they break down, obviously. So if you're planning on doing that yourself, you can extend that time, the 1 to 2 hours out, depending on age of equipment and what you're doing to the machines. 1 to 2 hours per laundromat. And however, I do want to be clear on this. I do want to say this. There are weeks where I spend more than that at my laundromat. Sometimes I do fix machines. I try not to do a ton of it, but there's fixes that I can do really quickly and easily. It's not worth it to wait for a repairman to come out. maybe a drain's clogged or something, or there's just a simple fix. I'll do that. And a lot of times those repairs are pretty quick for me to take care of, but issues do come up. I've had my laundromat flood, and that required me to go out there and fix it. I had this is a sad but true story. One Christmas Eve, I had to go out to my laundromat because someone shoved a whole potato in the toilet and it backed up the toilet. And I called a plumber out to go fix it, and he came out and he said, "There's something in the toilet and I can't rotor it out." And he left. And so I ended up having to go out to my laundromat, and, you know, I could have just called another plumber, but I was frustrated. And so I went out there and I had to take the whole toilet off and take it outside and basically break apart the potato to get it out. So weird stuff does happen. And sometimes it does require a little more than that 1 to 2 hours when stuff comes up. I've had a window broken, and that required me to come in, you know, and so stuff happens. And so I want to be clear about that. Generally speaking, on average, I spend 1 to 2 hours a week per laundromat at my laundromats. However, there are weeks where I spend more time than that. And so you need to be able to be prepared for that. So that's the first question you got to answer for yourself. Are you able to make that time commitment? You know, maybe 5 hours a week, depending on what's going on. So answer that question. The second thing is this: you got to be able to pay for the laundromat. And there actually are ways to get laundromats for free. And in fact, I wrote a blog post that is going up on the site. I'll link to it down below, on ways to get free laundromats. In fact, there's a lot of different ways to get free laundromats. And I'll do a future video on, there's a super secret way that you'll see all over YouTube. If you haven't seen it yet, you'll see it, about how to get free laundromats. And there's a course that you can buy, but I'll just tell you how to do it in an upcoming video, because it's not really a secret in the industry. There's no magic about it, and it does work, and you can do it. But you don't really need to buy a course to learn how to do it. So I'll do a future video on that. So look forward to that. And that's a great reason to go down and subscribe, so you don't miss that video. That could be worth its weight in gold right there. So, however, if you're not planning on getting one for free, you need to make sure that you either have the money to not only buy the laundromat, but also there's a lot of other expenses that come along with buying a laundromat, besides just the cost of the laundromat. Sometimes you have to make a deposit for your lease, for your rent. A lot of times you have to put deposits down for utilities. You know, there's startup costs. You might need to go buy some supplies like cleaning supplies, stuff like that. You got to buy quarters to fill your change machines up. So you got to have, you know, money for that. There's a host of things. And in fact, I have a blog post about the true cost of buying a laundromat and the many, many expenses that creep in there that nobody really talks about. And I'll link to that post down below too. It's up on the blog, laundromatresource.com/blog, but I'll put a specific link to that post there if you're curious and want to get depressed on all the expenses that go into starting a laundromat. And that's there not to discourage you. In fact, it's there to encourage you and to just prepare you, because you do need money. Even if you're getting a laundromat for free, you do need money to start up. There's no way around it. Now, it doesn't have to be your money necessarily. You can borrow that money from a bank, from just a lender or a private lender or the seller, or there's tons of different ways to finance a laundromat. And in fact, I have a blog post about that also, and I'll link to that below if you're curious as to different ways to finance a laundromat. That's a great post to go through, and it kind of gets your mind thinking. It's not extensive. I think there's 8+1 bonus way to finance a laundromat, and that just gets your mind thinking. That's not an exhaustive list. There are a ton of different ways that you can go about financing a laundromat. So but there is money involved. So you need to ask yourself, are you prepared to, with that money that it's going to cost to either buy a laundromat or buy and get one up and running. And you also, one other thing, you want to be prepared for and have some in reserve in case something happens early on before your cash flow has, made a reserve fund for you. You got to have that because you do not want to lose your business before it really even gets started. If, something goes wrong, you have an electrical problem or a big plumbing problem or something goes on. So all that to say, you got to be prepared for the time commitment. You got to be prepared for the money commitment. And the other thing that's related to both of those, and maybe kind of a combination of those, is it is a responsibility to own a business and to provide a service for a community that's an essential service. It's one of the things that makes laundromats great is that everybody needs clean clothes. Food, housing, and clean clothes. Those are the essentials right there. And so you're providing a service for a community that needs clean clothes. And with that comes a responsibility to your customers and to that community that you are going to run that business, in a way that's going to serve them. And so there's responsibility to that. And that, is anywhere from, keeping the place clean to, paying the bills and keeping the lights on and the gas on and, managing any employees you might have, whether they're just cleaning or if they're there full time or whatever the case may be. But there's a responsibility there. And so you need to make sure that you're ready for that responsibility. One of the common coaching clients that I have that sign up to do either the free coaching or even the paid consultations, which you can do. I'll put a link down below. But laundromatresource.com/coaching. If you're interested in that, we do offer some free coaching, and we have some paid coaching too if you're interested. So check that out. But one of the most common groups of people that I do coaching with is high paid professionals, doctors, lawyers, engineers who have no intention of leaving their job, at least not right now. They want, time independent side income. And so in order to do that, they're thinking about buying a laundromat. And I need to, one of my jobs, one of the things that I do with them is prepare them to make sure that it's going to fit with, their lifestyle. And if they're willing and able to take on the responsibility of owning a business that's serving a community and to running it well. So, and again, we're here to help you run it well. So don't be intimidated by that responsibility. We're here to provide you with tools, with knowledge, with information, and even with coaching and consulting to really make sure that you succeed. And our goal is to help you find financial independence with laundromat ownership. And so anything we can do, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to know in the very beginning, what's the biggest questions you have about laundromat ownership. So if you haven't left that comment yet, pause the video and leave a comment down below about what the biggest questions you have for laundromat ownership. Okay, so once you have determined that laundromat ownership is right for you, the second thing that you need to do before you must do this before you buy a laundromat is get the right people on your team. And let me tell you who I think the three most important right people on your team are before you do anything else. There's some other people that are important and you're going to need to get them on your team, but from the get-go, you need to have these three people. And here they are, kind of in no particular order. But number one, you need to have some brokers to work with, at least one, preferably more than one broker to work with who can feed you laundromat deals and send you pro formas of laundromats and allow you to analyze deals, get a feel for what's out there, how much things are costing, what it kind of looks like. You need to develop a relationship with brokers because that's where the deals come from. It's not the only place deals come from. And we do have a blog post about that, different ways that you can find laundromats to own. And I'll link to that down below also. Man, it's full of resources in this one. Man, be excited. Laundromat Resources, living up to its name in this episode. But anyways, brokers are going to be an awesome tool, whether you end up going with one or not, or buying a laundromat on your own. Either way, brokers are really going to be helpful. So you're going to want to develop some relationship with brokers. One of the services that we provide for free to you is that we actually help you find brokers to work with, and knowledgeable and trustworthy brokers. Unfortunately, the laundromat industry is still kind of plagued by predator brokers. And, that's been my experience. It's why I'm running this website. It's why I'm doing this YouTube video. It's why we're starting this podcast coming up. We're interviewing laundromat owners and their experiences, is because of the pain that I felt when I got paired up with two different brokers that outright lied to me and deceived me and kept crucial information from me. And it ended up costing me literally tens of thousands of dollars. And, I said to myself, I have learned some very, very difficult lessons the very, very hard way. Not only was there a financial burden, but just the stress on me and on my wife, and just our experience with that. It was awful, and I don't wish that on anyone else. And I've come to find out that it's not an uncommon thing. So one of the things that I personally am most passionate about is helping you find knowledgeable, reputable, and trustworthy brokers to work with to help you make a laundromat purchase, or if you're selling a laundromat, to sell a laundromat. And we do that for free to you. It doesn't cost you anything. What that looks like is you go sign up for a coaching call and you say, hey, I want to buy a laundromat, or hey, I want to sell a laundromat. And all I do is I'll just get some basic information from you, like where are you located, what's your budget, those kinds of things. And then what I'll do is I'll go and I'll find in your area, if I don't know somebody already in your area, I'll go find reputable, knowledgeable brokers to recommend to you. And you don't have to work with them. You're welcome to. You don't have to. It's totally up to you, and it's a free service that we do. So take advantage of that, which leads me to number 2 is consultant. You got to have not only a broker on your team, but also you got to have a knowledgeable consultant that is outside of the transaction, someone whose income does not depend on you buying a laundromat. And that's a big mistake I made in my very first laundromat. It literally cost me tens of thousands of dollars. And if I had it to do over, I would have paid a consultant a significant amount of money to tell me not to buy that laundromat, or at least not the way that I bought it. So you have got to have that third party in there just to bounce ideas off of, bounce information off of, to have a separate set of eyes on everything that's going on in the transaction, and to give you good, solid advice. Now, we do provide that service, but there are a lot of other very, very knowledgeable, very good people out there. And in fact, if you just find another laundromat owner who's willing to do that for you, that would be awesome too. So whoever you use, use somebody. That's my biggest piece of advice in all of laundromat ownership is don't buy it on your own, and don't rely on a broker whose income depends on you buying a laundromat solely. They will be a very helpful resource and tool, but they can't be your only resource and your only tool. Otherwise, you may end up in a situation like I found myself. So find at least one good broker to work with, and find at least one good consultant to work with. Paid, free, doesn't matter. Make sure they're knowledgeable, they know about the laundromat industry, and you trust them as well. But find that. The third person that I would get on board early on in the process is, and it's not necessarily somebody that you need to know beforehand, and it's also not somebody that you need to work on an ongoing basis with, but I would find a business lawyer to just have eyes on the legal documents that are in the process. Again, brokers, especially if you go with us, we're going to find you a knowledgeable broker who's going to know what they're doing. But you also want a legal eye looking, and I just paid a flat fee for both of my transactions for a lawyer to just look over, for example, the purchase agreement and the lease for my one laundromat, and just look over it and see any gotchas in there, and also to help what I would do, what I didn't do, but what I do now, what I encourage people to do now is to make sure that you're including in your contract some clauses that that dictate what's going to happen if information was misconstrued during negotiations and during due diligence, and when you take over, things don't look the way that they were portrayed to you before you bought the laundromat, and what's going to happen if things don't line up. So, for example, if the seller claims the laundromat's making X amount and it's really making 80% of X, what's going to happen? And a lawyer can help you navigate those waters and make sure those contingencies are in there. And so that's why I would really encourage you to get a lawyer on your team. You're going to need other people on your team throughout the process, especially when you enter contract. You want to find a good maintenance person that can look over the machines and tell you about their condition and how much life is left. You want probably an electrician to look over the electricity, because if your electricity is not good, you're not going to have a business very long. Same with the plumbing and gas lines and those kinds of things. So there's other people, but the broker, a consultant, and a good small business lawyer are like gold to you in this process. So first must before you buy a laundromat is that you have got to determine if owning a laundromat is actually even right for you, if it's going to fit you. And the second must before you buy a laundromat is you got to get the right people on the team. And that's a broker, a consultant, or like a mentor, something like that. And a small business lawyer would be my recommendation at the very least. Okay. Now the third thing is that you have got, before you pull the trigger and you sign on the dotted line, your name, and that laundromat becomes yours, you've got to answer the 4 questions of due diligence during the due diligence phase. And I actually just wrote a post about that, and I'll link to it down below. Also about what those 4 questions are, and go into a little bit more depth about those 4 questions. And actually there's an infographic there that is just a quick reminder. You can just save that if you want to, or share it to all your friends on social media. That'd be awesome too. But that infographic and that blog post will really kind of walk you through the 4 questions. And in fact, if you want an actual, like a really detailed version of those 4 questions, you can get that for free actually in our free ebook, The Keys to Buying Your First Laundromat. And you can get that for free just by joining our community and coming to contribute and be a part of us and be a part of what's going on here and helping one another grow and thrive in the laundromat industry, and hopefully helping all of us find financial independence, financial freedom through laundromat ownership. So go join, get that ebook, and get a really detailed description of these 4 questions. But here in just quick summary, here are the 4 questions that you got to answer before you buy that laundromat and it becomes yours. Is number 1 is this laundromat making the amount of money that the seller says that it's making? This is a cash business, and there are unfortunately people out there who will try to deceive you, and they can get really creative with that. So there's a bunch of ways that you can kind of go about verifying the amount of income that the laundromat's going in, and the ebook, again, that goes into some of those details, and we have some blog posts on the blog about that also. So go check those out. But you've got to verify that the amount of money coming in, the income, is what the seller says it is during that due diligence. Number 2, you have got to determine that the laundromat is actually spending what the seller says that it's spending. A laundromat is valued based off of net operating income, which is the income minus the expenses. And so you can end up paying a lot more for a laundromat if they say the income is, for example, $100,000 a year and the expenses are $50,000 a year. Well, if they didn't include all the expenses, or they, kind of under exaggerated the expenses, and really the expenses are, $60,000 a year. Well, you're buying a laundromat that they're claiming is bringing in $50,000 a year, but really it's only bringing in $40,000 a year. And so you're overpaying for that laundromat, and you're not going to see the returns that you are expecting to see when you buy that laundromat. And again, that's where a lawyer might help you come in and say, hey, you know what? Things aren't lining up with what you said. Here are the contingencies we have in place for that. So during due diligence, question number one, is the laundromat making what the seller says that it's making? Number two, is the laundromat spending what the seller says that it's spending? Number three, you've got to know that the laundromat is going to have a profitable future. And there are a variety of things. Again, grab that ebook or go check out the blog post. But there are a variety of things that will let you know if that laundromat does not have a future going ahead that's going to be profitable. For example, you need to have like a long-term lease that's not going to run out. You have no lease. Again, you have no business. It's really difficult to move a laundromat. So if your lease runs out and your landlord decides they want to, jack rents way up to where it's unreasonable, or they just decide they don't want a laundromat in their building anymore, well, all of a sudden you're out of a business. You just have a bunch of laundry equipment that's really expensive, and you got nowhere to put it, and no way to put it to work. So, a lease, for example, you also want to make sure that there's not a brand new, giant, nice, big one going in right down the street anytime in the near future. Just a variety of things. You want to make sure that there's a future for this. Again, like the plumbing and the electrical, you want to make sure those are good, because if those aren't good, you don't have a business, or it's going to cost you a lot of money. So ensure that your laundromat has a profitable future. That's number three. And number four, finally, is, are there ways to increase the cash flow and the value of the laundromat? And while I'm doing due diligence, I'm always scanning. I'm always on the lookout. What can I do to increase the value of this laundromat? What can I do to provide more value to customers? What can I offer them that they're really going to want? What service, what product, can I add more vending? Can I add an ATM? We have a checklist. I'll put a link down below too. Man, full of resources today. This is amazing. I told you it was a special day. We have a checklist free of charge. We don't even require an email. We don't even check to see how many people have downloaded. It's just for you, and I'll put a link. The link down below is a direct download link. So if you click the link, it's going to start downloading, and it's just a checklist that you can go through while you're doing due diligence and saying, hey, does it have this, and can I add it? If not, and is that going to add value? And it will if you do, and you can. So download that checklist. But again, you want to be adding value, because not only when you add income streams, you add income sources to your laundromat, big or small, not only is that money in your pocket each and every month that wasn't there before, but again, the value of your laundromat is based on a multiple of the net operating income, which is the income minus the expenses. So if your income goes up, the value of your laundromat goes up. Same with expenses going down. And that's another part of the value add checklist. Can you decrease any of those expenses? Maybe you can find insurance that's not quite as much. Maybe you can, cut down utility bills by putting in new equipment, whatever the case may be. There's a whole checklist. So go download it down below. And while you're down there, if you haven't yet, pause the video and go answer my question. What's your biggest question that you have about laundromat ownership? And then hit that subscribe button right there. But yeah, so you have got to answer those four questions. Is the laundromat making what it says it's making? Is it spending what the owner says the seller says it's spending? Does this laundromat have a profitable future? And are there ways to add value, to add income to this laundromat? Answer those questions. Okay, so those are the three must-do things before you buy a laundromat. And again, just a quick recap. Determine if a laundromat is right for you, and get the right people on your team, and then answer the 4 due diligence questions. And again, there's a very, it's pretty infographic. it's definitely worthy of being shared on social media. So go download that thing and go share it on social media so all your friends can just, ogle at how smart you are about laundromats. I know all of my friends are very impressed with me about how much I know about laundromats. Nobody's impressed, really. Okay. But yeah, go grab that thing and download the value add checklist also. So, okay, there's a lot of stuff in this video, and this is kind of an overview. There's a lot of resources that go into a little more depth down below. And again, that ebook, I'll put a link to that too. It's laundromatresource.com/join. So if you haven't joined our community yet, just come join us. There's some really cool stuff happening. Come and join us and be a part of what's going on right now. The last thing I want to leave you with, if you're still here and you're still with me, hey, kudos to you. Give yourself some bonus points today. Go, take yourself out or something like that. I don't know. But bonus points to you. I just want to let you know that we're about to launch the Laundromat Resource podcast. And I just want to tell you for 1 second about this podcast because I'm so excited about it. I just got off an interview a couple of days ago with a guy named Toby in Sydney, Australia, and he's telling me about all the cool things that he's doing. I've got all these cool guests that I've interviewed and then I have lined up. And the idea behind this podcast is not the same as this, where I'm just talking at you or to you or whatever. The idea behind this podcast is for laundromat owners like you, like me, just regular people running their businesses and being able to share their experience, share the wisdom that they've gotten, share how their laundromats are doing. And I'm super excited about that. So if that's something that you're interested in doing and being on, I'll put a link down below for you to sign up for that, and we'll get something in the queue to have a chat about your experience and get you on the podcast. So it'll be awesome. So look forward to that. Also, we'll be posting the videos of the podcasts on here on YouTube, and we'll have a playlist for that. So there's a couple little surprises. I'm incredibly excited about this. It's the favorite thing that I've done so far in all of this. So, and I've really enjoyed a lot of this. So thank you guys for being so awesome. Again, answer the question down below. I would love to hear what are the biggest questions you have, or maybe just one big question that you have about laundromat ownership. And I'll try to answer all of those either here through a video or on the blog or just in the comment section. Looking forward to seeing you the next time. And again, thanks for hanging tough. And hopefully you found this thing valuable. Give it a like and share it with somebody else that you think might like it. All right. I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.